So the diversity in STEM series, I'll talk about as the last piece. We also have what we call the STEM Equity Seminar Series, where we invite researchers, academics in the field from all over the country in different STEM disciplines to talk about their research and talk about their experiences if they're underrepresented themselves in the STEM field that they are in. And we've got a talk coming up in 2 weeks on November 12th, 2 weeks from now. It's Dr. Kelly Hirado, who's a professor of microbiology at UPenn, and she'll be talking about her research. And we have a couple other talks. We run about 2 talks a quarter that we'll be keeping up with in the winter time. We also have an internship program for all of you who are students and are looking to get more experience in your field. We've got a pretty big internship program that we just kicked off the outreach for, and I'll drop that in the chat. Micro internships, we're calling them, for the winter, where you get a chance to work on a research project with a Stanford or UC Santa Cruz researcher in a specific field. So if you're looking for internships, please check that out. I'm going to just have us get started, even with the 3 that we have. We've got 2 others, but hopefully they'll join us. So we are kicking off the Diversity in STEM series with a panel today on engineering pathways. So I have talked about this with some of my students, but I have become a LinkedIn avid user, where I've found out that you can go onto the Foothill College LinkedIn site. There's an alumni tab, and you can type in any kind of discipline, any year, a job, a workplace. So I've been literally going through LinkedIn looking for people in specific disciplines. And amazingly, Marie and Melody accepted my invite to connect, seeing that they were Foothill grads, and Marissa is somebody I already know. So we're going to hear from our Foothill grads, our alumni. One of our speakers today isn't an alum, but was a connection that I knew he was in the field of engineering. And so hopefully for all of you who are Foothill students, you'll get to hear a little bit more about what's that journey look like after Foothill, that I know many of you are questioning as you think about your own journeys. So why don't we start off with each of the guest speakers just sharing your name, what's your current job and your role, and we'll just keep it as a brief intro. So your name, your pronouns, what you majored in, and where you work now, and we'll start off that, and then I'll start rolling with the questions. So Marie, do you mind starting us off?
Yeah, so Marie Acco. I majored in mechanical engineering at USC. I currently work for Chevron as a mechanical design engineer, and I'm a she, hers, her, and I think that's it, right? All right, nice to meet you guys.
Great, thanks, Marie. Melody, what about you?
Hi, I'm Melody. I currently work at Nuro. I majored in mechanical engineering. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. Did I miss anything?
I think that was about it. We'll go with that for now.
All right.
And I see Lakevious. Is it Lakevious or Lakevious? Lakevious? I see you here. Marissa, why don't you go first with your intro, and then we'll hopefully get him on.
Hi, my name is Marissa. My pronouns are she, her, and I majored in mechanical engineering at Berkeley, and then I got a PhD in bioengineering at the University of Washington. And I went on and spent several years as a scientist at SLIR International, and then worked in science policy at the NIH. But recently I pivoted and I started a nonprofit to get more underrepresented women into computer science and STEM, and also work with Sophia at the SLI Learning Institute as the STEM workforce specialist, and also do some advising for tech companies to help them better use their products to serve populations in developing countries. So I'm doing a smorgasbord of things, but happy to talk to you about all of it.
Life is a smorgasbord of things, I think. Lakevious, are you there? Maybe he's having some technical difficulties. Okay, let's keep going, and I'll message him while the first person goes. So the first question we have is if you could share about your Foothill College experience, and just kind of who were some professors you remember, what are some resources you used, do you have fond memories? Was it a difficult experience? Kind of like, what was your Foothill College experience? You know, we're here with all our Foothill students, and if you can kind of share what that experience was like. Does anybody want to start? Go ahead, Melody.
I can go. This is like not because I'm speaking at Foothill right now, but I had the most incredible experience at Foothill, and I tell that to everyone. Before Foothill, I went to USF. I also went to Dianza. I also went to San Jose State, and like, just Foothill stood out to me so much. It was like a lot because of the professors. I felt like the professors were really there for the students. They weren't there to like do research, or like, they were just there to teach. And that was, I had the most incredible experience because of that. And also the STEM Center. I would always go there for tutoring after class. And I realized that that's like a huge luxury to have. I know like the other universities I went to, they tried to have something similar, but I think Foothill really stood out in terms of like the STEM Center and like the faculty. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about any, like one or two faculty you remember in particular?
I didn't want to pick any because I didn't want anyone to feel left out. But I mean, obviously, like all of my STEM professors, my physics and math professors, and there was like a few tutors in the tutoring center that I would always go to, and yeah, I didn't want to choose any names.
That's totally cool. Totally cool. Thanks, Melody. Who wants to go next?
I'm happy to go. I'll fill in the silence. So it's interesting. I actually got into UC San Diego after high school, and I was going to go straight, and I was going to go for psychology. I'm going to be honest, I was not super into school when I was in high school. I felt like we were learning all this material and I didn't know how it applied in the real world. And without that connect, I just wasn't into it. I have ADD. So like if I'm not super engaged with what I'm doing, it's just like doesn't resonate. But when I was at Foothill, I was doing all of my general ed, and my father's an engineer. So in the back of my mind, and I was always good at math, I thought, let me dabble in taking some of the pre-STEM, like the math and the physics that you would need if I picked engineering at some point. But in the spring of my first year at Foothill, someone came in and talked to us about a new partnership that NASA was having with Foothill to put interns at NASA. And they were paying like twice what I was making at my minimum wage job. And so I was like, oh, I want to do it, more so because I was like, I want to make more money. Applied and got this opportunity to work at NASA on site at the Mountain View campus for a year. And it started with a full-time opportunity in the summer. And there I was actually given my first project that related to heat transfer of aircraft hardware, spacecraft hardware. And it was mechanical engineering, and they threw a heat transfer book at me. And suddenly like all of the calculus and the physics and everything that we were learning like completely made sense. And I was like, oh my gosh, I get why this all makes sense. And I tell you that not just my college experience changed or my career, it's like my life changed, because for the first time, it all made sense. And so that opportunity, like it pivoted me towards STEM, and it was mechanical engineering. So I was like, I'm going to major in mechanical engineering, and everything changed. Like my grades went up. I became more focused. I was more engaged in school. And so Foothill really changed my life through that internship opportunity. So I tell that because it's like these internships, there's so many more internship opportunities now than there were back then. And I encourage all of you to really take advantage of those, because getting to see how all of what you're learning applies in the real world is like life-changing. I mean, it was game-changing for me. And as far as my professor, Sophia, this was 20 years ago. I don't remember. I remember my Berkeley professors, but I don't remember my Foothill. I know that some of my math professors, like I think Melody mentioned, they really are just there to teach. And so they were really, just engaged. And it's just, I do remember that fondly, and I remember faces, but I could not tell you the names for the life of me. So I can't tell you that, but overall, I just really loved being at Foothill. So that's my story.
Thanks, Marissa. Marie, what about you? And I'm going to have actually, it looks like two of our panels couldn't make it, but we have a backup here. So I'm going to have Anne join us. I'm going to put her on spotlight and we can have her introduce herself after you go, Marie.
Yeah, so I second everything that Melody said. I can really relate to that. My experience at Foothill was an amazing one. It was challenging at times, which I guess I'm gonna talk a little more to that. But I learned a lot, right? I met some awesome people that I'm still friends with today. I actually still have a couple of my teachers in my network on my LinkedIn, stayed in touch with them. So it was great. There were a lot of events on campus, like cultural or just like diversity events. I was part of the engineering club. I don't know if that still exists, but leadership team. So I got to like organize and participate in a few of our STEM events. So that was great. Yeah. But it was challenging for me because English is not my first language. And so coming fresh out of language school that I did for only a month and having to take chemistry, physics, and math classes was grueling. Like it was really tough. I'm also an introvert and taciturn, so it was tough for me to reach out to people or even welcome folks that will, approach me or initiate that relationship, network at first. But the people at Foothill, from the professors, the advisors, my classmates, everybody was pretty warm and welcoming. So it made it easier for me, as I was progressing through my time at Foothill College. And my favorite teacher that I can remember, she was a teacher and tutor, and her name is Casey Takamoto. She was teaching English 1B, or at least that's when I had her as a teacher. Yeah, I think she no longer works there, but yeah, she was a sweetheart. She was very kind, caring, patient, and had a lovely voice. So I'll remember her forever. But there were other great teachers, of course. But yeah, so a little bit of my experience with video.
Thanks for sharing. Is it Lakevious or Lakevious?
It's Lakevious.
Lakevious. Oh, you made it. Okay. Can you turn on your video and I'll have you join us?
I am. 1 second. I think
Okay.
I overbooked my Wi-Fi this week, so
Awesome. Oh, welcome. Great. It's good to see you. So we've got Anne and Lakevious. Why don't each of you just first off introduce your name, pronouns if you're okay sharing. And if you were at Foothill, what you majored in, and if you weren't at Foothill, Lakevious, you can just share what you majored in whatever college you were at. So we'll start there and then we'll continue with the questions. So Anne, you want to go first?
Sure, that's okay. So my name is Anne. I am an alum. I did go to Foothill. My pronouns are she, her, hers. When I was at Foothill, I was doing chemistry, physics, math, and engineering. And I am now at San Jose State doing chemical engineering. So that's about it, right?
Yeah, we'll go with that. Yep. And then Lakevious, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Lakevious Beto. I go as he, him. Nice to meet you all. I am a graduate of Winston-Salem State University here in North Carolina, where I majored in management information systems. Also I was a student athlete as well, so played football 4 years there. And then for graduate school, I went to North Carolina Central University, which is also here in North Carolina, where I also majored again in management information systems, but more of a strategic focus and management. So I think that's it. Did I miss anything?
Nope, that's great. That's great. And I was explaining at the beginning that I found Marie and Melody through LinkedIn, just kind of trolling Foothill College alumni. Anne and Marissa, I know already. And Lakevious was a connection through another connection that I also met on LinkedIn. So I will just probably, the theme of today is get on LinkedIn and use that to kind of network and connect with others. So what Marie, Melody, and Marissa just kind of talked a little bit about was their experience at Foothill. So Anne, if you could share what your experience at Foothill was, and Lakevious, even though you didn't go to Foothill, maybe you can just share what your own college experience was. I think, most of our participants are Foothill students there at college, kind of reflecting on that experience. So Anne, you want to go first and then we'll hear from Lakevious?
So what I want to say is just going to make it sound like an echo chamber, but I loved my time at Foothill. It was an incredible 3 years for me. I loved all of my professors. friends I have now are from Foothill, and the campus is beautiful. And like Melody was highlighting, the professors were definitely there to just teach you. And shout out to the STEM Center, 100%. I am in pain right now, not having a resource like that, like the STEM Center, going to just get help on homework and just, extra understanding. And Mike here is one of my favorite tutors at the STEM Center. And yeah, so it was great. Really prepared me for what I need to do right now. I got a very strong foundation of what I needed to know to move on with my academic career. So my favorite professors are just my bias because I'm a chemical engineer. So physics and chemistry professors, David Marasco, Kathy Armstrong, Richard Daly, or physics and chemistry professors. And they gave me such love for chemistry and physics and were just great professors. And I miss them dearly, and I had to talk to them. And I would love to come back on campus to just see everybody again.
Thanks, Anne. Lakevious.
Sure. So my experience was pretty cool, actually, also. So I went to a historically Black college, which I actually was on the fence about initially going into college because of the stereotype that I thought that existed at the time of going to historically Black colleges, and then trying to navigate your way into a career after the fact. But as I've learned for sure and seen multiple times that it wasn't necessarily the case. So, but definitely enjoyed my experience there. Got to be around a lot of people who look like me, who thrive to do things like me, and were able to also, achieve things that I've, seen and still to this day, I'm amazed seeing people who work at, some of the top companies from ESPN to Chevron, Microsoft, Google, Apple, all that good stuff. So just seeing that, I think just attests to the type of environment we were in, to have, like Ann mentioned, some of the support. We had a pretty cool professional development center where we go through and do mock interviews. We would do resume development critiques to kind of make sure you were kind of honed in on those things. Like pretty much throughout college the whole time. I also was an athlete, so of course I enjoyed playing football, get to know a lot of coaches and athletes that I play with as well. And then the professors, of course, I actually ran into one of my professors who was my immediate professor in undergrad, who's actually the dean of the graduate studies program that I went to in grad school. So that's pretty cool to kind of see her full circle and her seeing me coming back to school to finish my master's and have some conversations with her and see the great things she's doing as well as myself. So definitely a great experience. Like I said, it was something I'll definitely always remember from the friends and relationships and to just the fun experiences of life outside of high school and being home under my parents. So definitely critique that too. Definitely appreciate that experience that I went through there.
Great, thank you. I'm going to drop in the chat in case students are a little more curious about each of the speakers' bios, because what we'll do a little bit later is get into breakouts and you get to pick somebody you want to ask more questions to. So you can open their bios there. The next question is more about now your career journey. So this panel is called Engineering Pathways. I think each of you has gone into a different field of engineering, either come out of it or stayed in it in different ways. So if each of you could kind of talk about your path since Foothill, which led to you to where you are now, or Lakevious in your case from college, and what were some of those important moments along the way? I know that's kind of like, what's your life story? But yeah, what are important people or moments that got you to where you are at your current position? Anybody want to start us off?
If everyone is okay, I would like to go just because I do have to dash at around noon. So for me, it was the very first chemistry class that I took at Foothill. I initially wanted to go back to school to do nursing. So I took the chemistry class as a requirement, and it was just a revelation. In the moment, I love chemistry. I understand it. This makes sense. So I took a leap of faith and decided to switch over to do chemical engineering. And from then on, it was just fell more and more in love with what I learned, the chemistry, the physics, the math, and everything. And like I was saying earlier, Foothill really, so that was a defining moment for me into what I'm doing right now. I'm still in school doing my BS and my MS in both in chemical engineering. And that was a pivotal moment. And like I was saying, Foothill really prepared me for what I need to do right now. So am I missing anything, Sophia? Is there something else I need to address also?
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who'd like to go next?
I can go. So, okay, my engineering career really started at Foothill because before that I was a pre-med student. I did that for almost a year, but then I came to Foothill, and at Foothill I became a NSF scholar, and during that time I was given a mentor, and my mentor at the time, she was in charge of the medical devices lab, biomedical devices lab at Foothill. So she knew I was like looking for an internship, and she was like, hey, like, do you want to join my lab? And I was like, of course, like, I would love to. And she was like, okay, to be part of my lab, you need to take this computer aided design class. I was like, okay, so I did it, and I realized, oh, this is like super cool. I love art and math. So I really enjoyed the class. And at that time, I was like, okay, like maybe engineering is the route for me, because pre-med was something that was like predetermined by my parents. So I was like, okay, biology is like the hardest thing for me. I'm not very good at memorizing. I'm a lot more of like a problem solver. So then I decided to go into engineering. And after graduating Foothill, basically when I got into engineering, my goal was to get an internship at Tesla. So I like talked to different engineers and trying to see, okay, how can I get an internship there, right? Other than just applying, because there's so many people that apply. I wanted to stand out in some way. So what I'd heard is that, okay, like if you're in a Formula SAE team, then that could be like a really good thing on your resume. So I transferred to San Jose State, and like the first thing I did within like the first few weeks was sign up for the Formula team at San Jose State, and start your first like semester on the team. You're an intern. You're not like a full member yet, because they want to give you like a trial run. But so I was like an intern on the team, and just was like working on the vehicle and whatnot, and learning so much. I highly recommend anyone who wants to get into mechanical engineering or electrical engineering to join Formula teams at their next university. But yeah, during that time, I got I saw an opportunity to intern at NASA. And I was like, okay, I'm like building my resume. I need to get an internship. Because I always felt like, okay, maybe I'm not ready for a Tesla internship yet. And that's where like imposter syndrome comes from, and all of that. And my thing is like apply for the job now, but before I was just like, I need more experience to get to the next step. But yeah, so there was a NASA internship opportunity with a master's student at San Jose State. She was working on her thesis, and she needed an ME student to help her with design, with the design she was working on. So I did that. It was supposed to be like a 1-month internship, turned into 6 months. And I was, yeah. So I gained that experience, and during that, I was doing that on the weekends, basically. Yes, kind of. I was working on my designs on the weekends and like going into NASA like during the weekday at after school and stuff. So then I was like, okay, I need like a summer internship, and I joined the Society of Women Engineering, Society of Women Engineers at San Jose State, and there I met a mentor, and I was explaining to her that I like wanted a Tesla internship, and I was like, okay, but like before I get there, I want an internship here to like build my resume to get there. And she was like, okay, but like, where do you really want to work? And I was like, at Tesla. And she's like, okay, like you're ready, just like fill out the application, like. And so what I ended up doing was I actually had a previous coworker who was working there on a team that I wanted to be on. So I sent him my resume, and he referred me to his team, and I interviewed, and I ended up getting the Tesla internship I wanted. And after that, I was like, okay, I enjoyed this experience. I really liked my team at Tesla. I really liked the work that I was doing. And I was like, okay, I had one more summer to go before graduating. So I was like, okay, for my next internship, I am gonna look for another company to make sure, like to compare, to be able to compare, right? So then the next summer I applied at Nuro, which is where I'm currently working. And when I went there, I got so much mentorship while I was working there. I had like an incredible manager and boss, and I ended up returning there for full time because of that mentorship I was receiving. And the feeling where you feel like your voice is heard within the company, and like it was a really incredible experience. So that's why I ended up going back to Nuro.
That's great. I hope everybody's hearing like these themes, right? Internships, experience, but just give it a try. You never know. And I think cutting yourself down before you've even given it a try, I think is often what many of us do. I think the importance of mentors in your life too. It sounds like, I'm sure that'll be a common theme. So
yeah, it's huge. Like I always thought of this word networking, and I was like, I thought it was this like thing that I couldn't grasp, but it's just like making friends and like just opening up and talking to someone. And like you just got to understand really that like these people are not just their titles. They're not their titles of manager and VP and CEO. Like they're people first. So always feel the ability to like reach out to them and talk to them and have lunch with them and grab a coffee, you know?
yeah, great. Thanks, Melody. Who'd like to go next?
I can. What was the question?
Yep. Just kind of like, what was your journey after college to get you to the job where you are currently? And the next question will be about what is your job, but yeah, the journey to get there.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So yeah, my journey was different. So once I graduated from undergrad, I actually didn't have anything right outside of like before me graduating, and which I regret that Melody kind of pinpointed was internships. At school, at undergrad, it wasn't mandatory for me to get an internship to graduate. So for me, I'm already an athlete. I'm just trying to get things done, make sure my grades are decent, to graduate, things like that. But it wasn't really pushed for me. I didn't really have a mentor at the time to really push me to say like, hey, make sure you get these internships, X, Y, and Z, things like that. So like I said, after that, I left. Thankfully, when I graduated, my high school basketball coach worked in the education department for where I went to school at, so my high school, middle school, things like that. So when I went back, they were actually hiring for like help desk support type roles. So I went back, I applied. I had, pretty much the teachers that I went to school under were like my references. So, they pretty much, looked out for me and put in a good word. And I met the IT director, some like the network admin, things like that. And they liked me and ended up working out. So I stayed there for about a year. I moved back to my hometown, which I hated, honestly. I was there for about a year. My hometown is probably like 15,000 people. So it's super small. And I was like, man, I don't want to be here, especially after graduating and, playing sports and stuff. So stayed for about a year. I literally applied for jobs every other day for like 6 months. And a lot of things, you got to learn, like being in tech, like you have to have experience, which you can't have unless you get a job to get experience, but that's another story for another day. So after I got the experience, I actually got 2 offers down the line a year later. So one was at Verizon, which ended up being my second job. So there's a corporate office here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And then the other was, my mind just went blank. It's a healthcare IT company based out of Kansas City, and it's huge there. I cannot believe I forgot that. But they're there. Like they flew me out for interviews. Like treated well. Team was great. But I just knew like the Verizon mentality just spoke to me more at the meeting with them. I mean, it was Verizon, so I really couldn't even, think of what would be next for me. So I went in, started as a technical program manager role. So not necessarily specifically engineering, but I worked around a lot of engineering. So that's where my love for engineering came after that. At first, I just wanted to be a project manager, like technical project manager, program manager type role. And then I got around like a lot of solutions architects, solution engineers, network engineers. And I was like, man, it's so cool what they do. Like I just want to do what they do. So I got a couple mentors there. I shadow a couple of different engineers continuously throughout my 4 years I've had at Verizon. I jumped from that role, and then I later got an opportunity to become a solution engineer, which was a lateral move for me at the time, but ultimately I knew it would be something that really get me where I wanted to go. So I got over on the wireless team, so I learned like a lot of wireless tech, which is pretty cool. So, seeing cell phones, which is obviously everyone has one. So just seeing how like cellular networks work, things like that, learning about it, working in that team for a little bit. And then I was able to get, who actually brought me to you was Brandon Johnson, who was at NetApp at the time, which is a pretty big space here and over in California as well, with their headquarters are located. And then I went there, got introduced to that team and that company, which was pretty big for me. I remember applying there when I was at the support role, like multiple times and never got in. So that was a big step, I think, in my journey to where I was able to get another SE role that was outside of my norm. So they're more storage related, who people don't know about NetApp, which is really huge now, especially like in data management world where everything is data analytics. Which gave me exposure to Microsoft, a product they actually co-engineered with Microsoft called Azure NetApp Files, which became my specialty product, which got me a lot of exposure to Microsoft, Azure, a lot of that team. So I ended up, the people I used to work with that I now actually work with at Microsoft. So actually going through the interview process, I just kind of felt right for me, honestly, being that I was already working with them, kind of got familiar with Microsoft and Azure, things like that. I actually was interviewing for a couple of different roles, which was pretty big. Cloud computing is huge right now. If anyone's interested, I'll push you to go to that space, wherever it is within that umbrella. But I was actually getting interviewed by Google and Amazon at the time I was interviewing for Microsoft all at one time, which was mind blowing to me to even be in that space. Like what do I even do? And it kind of got to the point they almost fighting over me. I applied for actually 2 jobs at Microsoft. 2 teams were like trying to get me in. So it was just crazy to see it come full circle. And that was over 2015. So about 6 year span that I went between those roles and companies. So now here at Microsoft, still pretty new. I came in June, so I'm actually a senior solution architect now, which is still kind of crazy, but definitely enjoying what I do now. So I'm focused more on the Southeast area here in the US. So that's pretty much most of my customers, some pretty big customers. So yeah, so that was pretty much my journey.
Great. Yeah, I think there's all this like nothing's ever linear, right? It's like finding opportunities, networking, shadowing. I mean, there's so many pieces that you have to be active in searching for. So that's a cool journey to share. Maria or Marissa, who wants to go next?
I can
Sure.
go.
Go for it. Oh, go ahead, Marie.
Oh, okay. All right. So let's see. So I started at 10 years old, really, if I can remember it correctly. I was flying to Paris for the holidays with my mom and my brothers. And I got that opportunity from the airplane crew to kind of like go inside the cockpit. And then I got in this place and it was so small, but it had all these lights and commands that just fascinated me. And, just like hearing them talk, what did I know, right? I was only 10 years old, but them talk about like the plane's inner workings and some of the things that they had to do and some of the components of the planes and all that. It was really mysterious, but also, I guess, amazing to me, kind of like attracted me. And then after that event, I started designing models of planes and cars, like using different materials such as like pottery clay, and I really enjoy that. So that's what I would do during my spare time. And then over time, this passion for machines, I guess, because it wasn't just planes, it was also cars, anything moving really, kind of grew over time. And in July 2012, when I moved here to California from my home country, I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew I had to come here for higher education, but I didn't know what I was going to do. All I knew it was going to be in STEM for sure. So I was motivated by dreams of like exploring complex engines. And so like I started researching and discussing with my professors and kind of doing my own research. And in doing that, I learned that there was a field that actually encompassed machine and mechanical design and creation, and that was mechanical engineering. So I actually joined Foothill majoring in general engineering, again, because I didn't want to like pick my major too soon and be stuck with it for like 4 years or whatever and the rest of my life. So I decided to just major in mechanical engineering after I left Foothill College because of the reason that I already gave. And so I went to USC from Foothill College. I was majoring in mechanical and petroleum engineering because I guess the original plan was for me to go back home. And for that, or at least the best sector there would be petroleum engineering or like oil and gas. So USC was kind of like that only university that would offer me that opportunity to do both at the same time. So I took that opportunity. And so I moved to LA from the Bay Area, to LA from the Bay Area. And so I don't have much to say about my time at USC. I was really focused on just classes, studying. So I didn't do much extracurricular. I did a lot more at Foothill College. But I did get internships though. So I interned for the most part at SFO, so San Francisco Airport, as a mechanical design trainee. So my first time doing that was in the summer 2016. I actually just got an email from a friend that was like, hey, I know you love planes and stuff. I mean, because of my status, my immigration status, I couldn't really work for Boeing, which was, I guess, the dream, or Airbus in Europe. So she was like, hey, I think even though you're not gonna necessarily be flying planes or like doing anything with planes, you're still gonna be around planes. And so, no, actually, hold on. I forgot to say one thing. It's part of me being fascinated with planes and everything. I wanted to be a commercial pilot. So that was kind of something I had in my heart the whole time. And even when when I got here, I still wanted to be a commercial pilot. But coming from the French system, being a commercial pilot, you're getting paid a lot more. And it's more of a prestigious job than it is here. Here, I feel like it's just like a taxi driver. I'm sorry, but you know, that's what it appeared to be to me. So yeah. So I ended up taking one flying lesson that it was like a birthday gift. And then after this lesson, I was like, no, this is not for me. I got so scared. I got really scared. I was like, I love flying, but I'm going to be in the back of the plane. I'm not going to be front row seat. No, that's not going to happen. So that was like a month after I joined Foothill College. But yeah, so now back to my time in USC, where my friend sent me that email and she was like, there's that internship as a mechanical design trainee at SFO. I think you should apply. So it was like literally 2 days before they closed the application period. So I sent in my application. I was like, okay, whatever, let's see if that works. And it did actually work out. So so I ended up coming back to the Bay for that internship. I met a lot of amazing people. Like I made so many mentors over there. I learned so much about, you know, steel and mechanical engineering. I learned a little bit about HVAC systems, construction. And at this point, I was still unsure what field of engineering or what industry I was going to end up in. But for now, I was in construction. I really enjoyed working around planes. I was always out there in the field trying to take pictures of planes. But anyways, so that first internship went really well. So they gave me the opportunity to come back every time I had a time off. So that would be like summer and also winter. So I did that for about 3 years. And then when I was getting ready to graduate, they weren't ready to offer me a job. So it's kind of like, we want to keep you, but it's a public agency, right? So you have to like take a test, they put you on a list, and then they have to go down the list and all that. I didn't have that time. So I was like, okay, I need to find something else. So I started applying through the career fair of the school. And then I was applying everywhere. Again, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was just kind of like, okay, let's see what works out. And I ended up getting that job at Schlumberger. So they're a service company working in oil and gas as a cementing field engineer, so upstream. And I guess it was funny that I didn't have anything else besides going back to construction, which I knew I didn't want to do. So I took on that job. It was based out of Shreveport, Louisiana. So I had to move out of California, go to the South. I had nobody there, nobody even close. And so, yeah, it was terrifying. So it took me like a good 3 months of me figuring out, do I really want to do this? But at the same time, it was a great opportunity. I loved what my role was going to entail, that I was going to break free from my family for a little bit and just get a new experience, right? So I ended up going over there. And so most of my job was supervising cementing jobs. I don't know how familiar you are, but it's just supervising jobs that I had to do. So there wasn't a lot of engineering involved at all. Most of the engineers were like in-house in the office, and then they'll send you the, I guess, cementing job package, and then you just had to make sure that it was pumped the way that it said it should be pumped. So that bothered me, right? Because I was hired on to do engineering work, and I wasn't doing engineering work. And also, I did not like the South. Again, I was living in Shreveport. It's so small, isolated. It's so calm. It's not my type of city. I just didn't like it. So I did that for about a year. I love traveling though. So you travel all over the US. So that was cool. But anyway, so after that, I ended up quitting my job and coming back to LA. I came back to LA in like March of 2020. And I started looking for jobs again. It took me about 6 months. I went back to school, career fair, and I went to the Chevron booth, and they really liked me. I got an interview with them. So it was a first round interview and then a second interview. And yeah, and then I joined Chevron in January 2020 to work as a mechanical design engineer, which was totally different, again, from what I was doing at Schlumberger. So I feel like for me, I haven't really had options. It kind of was like, this is the only option you have, so you can say no to it. So yeah, so that's kind of how I ended up where I'm at today.
Yeah, I mean, that's also helpful for people to hear, right? It's like you don't always have those options, but take advantage of it, right? To keep learning as much as you can. And then hopefully that opens up more opportunities later. Marissa, why don't we hear from you? And then I think what we'll do after Marissa answers is we'll just do a quick round of if you all can share what your job is now, so students know, and then we'll do breakouts and have students get to choose who they want to go talk with. So Marissa, you want to share your journey? And I know it's been a lot longer than some of these, so maybe you can cut out or cut shorter some of the parts and kind of summarize or whatever feels most appropriate.
Yeah, my career journey has been 20 years since I graduated, almost 20 years since I graduated college. So I think I'm probably maybe not twice your age, but well, whatever, it doesn't matter. But I wanted to share, like, I know for Marie, she was, for her, it hit when she was 10. For me, it was the opposite. Like I said before, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wasn't in school and I wasn't into school. And it wasn't until I got to Foothill and in almost my second year of Foothill that I got the NASA internship. And that was the first time that I really was into the mechanical engineering project that I was given. It was, I had to design. Someone like my mentor basically threw a book at me and was like, figure out what materials we need to use so that the material inside this box that's going up into space stays at a certain temperature, and these are the atmospheric conditions. And then he threw a heat transfer book at me. And I had, mind you, a couple quarters of physics. I think I was through calculus 1D. But I mean, that was about it. And I opened up the heat transfer book and it was like the application of all those things. And I went through like convection and conduction of materials and like, it all started to click. And I was like, oh my gosh, this makes sense. And it was the first time I felt engaged. So the internship was in mechanical engineering and I thought I'm going to study mechanical engineering. So when I applied to schools, I put mechanical engineering as my major. Transferred to Berkeley, did really well when I got there. In fact, did so well and that I got an internship at General Electric that summer. And I had a whole project on doing finite element analysis of their jet pump. Was super, did an incredibly good job, but felt bored. I was like, is this all there is to corporate America? Like you get a job and you do this work and that's it. And a lot of what they were doing when they were doing reports is they would just like copy reports for like older reports and just kind of update them according to the specs. But I felt like it wasn't true engineering. So I broke the whole thing down and analyzed the whole thing and like applied all of the engineering that I was learning and came up with this whole report. And actually when the report was submitted, I was the lead engineer on the report. And it came back with no comments, which never happens. And so I got this like company-wide award. And then I was like, I felt like, wow, is this all there is to it? So, I went back to school and I was like, I don't know if the corporate route is for me, or I don't know. I started to feel a little bit disengaged. And then I took a biomechanics and a biomaterials class at Berkeley. And I loved, like when I was a little kid, like everyone else, I think you want to be a doctor. And I was like, oh my gosh, the application of engineering to biology, maybe that's where I can kind of live out this fantasy of being combining the two. And at that time, UC Berkeley had just started its bioengineering PhD program. And I met this Mexican girl who was the first Latina ever to be accepted to their bioengineering PhD program. And there was only like 6 students accepted to it. And just simply by meeting her, I was like, because I'm Latina, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's in a PhD program. If she can do it, I can do it. And it was a bioengineering. So I was like, I'm going to do that. I mean, literally my thought process was this simple, So I pivoted and I decided like I was going to go to graduate school. And so the next summer I did a research internship. Enjoyed that a lot more. It was much more challenging than going than the corporate experience. And so decided, I'm smart, I can do this. Applied to a bioengineering program, got there and did a PhD at the University of Washington. And then went on and continued to work as a scientist for several years at SLI International. And in that time, I constantly felt this, dissatisfaction with the fact that I felt like all of the research that we were doing was funding projects and research that was going to affect the wealthiest people in the world with all of the resources. And I felt like there was so much inequity in the research that was being funded and the research that we were doing. And I was constantly trying to push to do research and to write grants that would actually solve problems in developing countries. And there was a lot of pushback. And I was getting incredibly frustrated with that. So about 2010, I got the opportunity to actually move to DC and work in science policy, where we were going to create more ways of implementing, like ways of measuring where the research funding was going, and then creating more equity in research. So I pivoted towards science and thought I wanted to make more of a difference and make sure that we were diverting more science to actually solving the needs of the majority of the world's population that wasn't being met. And I worked with the NIH, and it was, several years of, at the end of the day, a lot of bureaucracy, because the intention from some people was there, but the execution wasn't happening the way that it should. And so I felt incredible resistance. And at the end of the day, I started to feel incredible burnout. I felt like my passion beginning from when I was at Foothill, and actually this is something I didn't mention, but when I was at Foothill, I was president of MECHA, which was like the Chicano Student Union, and was always incredibly involved with empowering our community, and especially communities of color, to come to university, to get into STEM. When I was at Berkeley, I actually, through SHIP, created all of these programs to do outreach in local high schools in the East Bay, bring students, exposing them to STEM, and raised money for that. And it's like, I kind of, at the end of the day, always cared about that kind of work more so than my school. And so, and I was always, when I was at the NIH, I created a program partnerships with schools in DC to bring students, to expose them to STEM. And I was always like, that was always my passion. And so, I think it was mid 2015 or so, that I was like just burnt. And I was like, my passion has always been empowering the next generation and creating systems so that, one, there's more equity both in science and in STEM, and two, that there's more equity in terms of the opportunities for people of color and underrepresented students to get into STEM. So I literally left. I moved to New York. I decided I might take a small sabbatical, or I don't know what I was going to do. But I started connecting with on-the-ground organizations that were working on improving equity in STEM, organizations in Harlem and the Bronx. And I started doing like some side consulting with different organizations, and realized that this was really where my passion was, that I loved this work a million times more than anything I had ever done, like in the lab as a scientist, or even like fighting bureaucracy at the NIH. And so I was like, I need to explore this space. So I kind of like took some time to dabble in that space. I led a nonprofit for over a year in Mexico that was working on getting more low-income women into computer science. I actually, for a time, I took a position at Facebook and actually led a program to expand computer science and developer programming throughout Latin America. And ultimately, I ended up deciding to start my own nonprofit, which actually focuses on getting more women of color into computer science. And we're focused on programs right here in Silicon Valley. And I also joined Sophia's group at the SLI to look at, what's happening in community colleges and where is the drop off happening in community colleges. And then on the side, to kind of like keep my STEM brain activated, I do some advising for tech companies that are trying to create products and bring them to people in underserved communities. So like I'm advising one company that's creating a financial literacy app that will help women in developing countries be smarter with their finances. And it's like, how do we actually make sure that we're meeting the needs of these women? And so that kind of like keeps my technology brain activated. But, it's unconventional, but I find that like the work that I do now, I'm a million times happier and more passionate about and more engaged with than anything I ever did. So it's just, been a non-linear path to ultimately, doing what I'm passionate about and what I feel like is going to make a longer lasting impact in the world than the work that I was doing prior. So that's it.
Thanks. Yeah, that's great. It's just interesting hearing everybody's just so different stories, and each of you is where you are. Thanks, Jess, for coming. So maybe you can all just share what's your job title currently, and like a 2-sentence elevator pitch of what that job entails. Because I think we can see the title, but it doesn't necessarily convey what you actually do. And then we'll get, so students, you all start to think about who do you want to go into a breakout with. I originally thought we could have time for 2 breakouts, but I think we'll just have time for 1 breakout. So just start to think about who you'd want to go into a breakout room with. So Lakevious, you want to share your title, and then what, like a 2-sentence blurb about what that entails?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a senior cloud solutions architect at Microsoft. So short story that I help companies, organizations architect their cloud infrastructures, basically where nothing in the sky. They basically let us manage their infrastructure, networking, storage, all these things that are running physical data centers. They use us to basically manage that for them. So I help them architect that and achieve whatever particular task they're trying to complete or whatever application they're trying to move there for that space. So that's it, short story.
Hey, sounds good. I know there's always the longer stories. Marissa, what would you say is your title? And
Yeah, so I'm a nonprofit founder and CEO for Empoder Latinas Code. We actually, anyway, we used to just be Empoder, but now we're really focusing on Latina women because they're the most underrepresented in computer science. So we run a summer program and a year-round program to get more Latinas into computer science. I'm also working with SLI as their STEM workforce coordinator, and I'm also a tech advisor. But I saw that there was some interest in bioengineering, and I've spent over a decade as a scientist in biomedical engineering and have a huge passion for that. Actually still have, still advising a couple companies that are developing products in that. So if anyone has that interest, I can definitely hold a breakout room that is more STEM related, focused on that, because I don't think there's anyone else in bioengineering on the panel.
cool.
So just wanted to throw that in.
Yep. Yeah. And maybe you can kind of talk in from that perspective too. So what's your title? What do you do? And what are you happy to talk about in your breakout? So Melody?
So I'm a mechanical engineer. I work on our sensor systems that are on our autonomous robot. Yeah, I think that's it.
Sounds good. Yep. And Marie?
So I'm a facilities mechanical design engineer for Chevron. And what I do is provide mechanical engineering support for the routine daily operation and also turnaround operation of refinery process units. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, great. And I see Viet just joined us. Hi, Viet. We're an hour into our workshop and we're about to get into breakouts. But do you want to maybe we can see if anybody maybe wants to stay in the main room. Do you want to share? Viet was one of our guests today. What is your job title? And then we'll see if anybody wants to talk with you specifically too. And what do you do in your job?
Yeah, sure. Sorry I'm late. I am actually at work and I had a few fires I needed to put out. So
Yikes.
so finally I was able to hop into this meeting. So I apologize for that. And if I look a little bit funny, it is Halloween, so I am kind of dressed up right now. So anyhow,
yeah, do you want to
work-
just share what your job is and what your field is, and then we can see where we go.
So I work for a company called Ironox. They're based out of San Carlos, but they also have a facility here in Santa Clara. And we are focused on sustainable food growing, or sustainable agriculture. And our main product right now is basil, and we implement a automated process to grow, harvest, and bring to market food products. So my job title is senior mechanical engineers, and I work with the team that develops the robots that moves these big modules that are just full of water and plants and seeds and stuff like that around the greenhouse. And so I'm specifically on the hardware team dealing with the powertrain systems. Basically, the fire that I had to put out today was we had a lot of issues with some of the motors coming in from our vendor. And so we've been doing rounds and rounds of testing and validation to make sure that these things are going to work reliably. So, and we've got a pretty tight schedule coming up. So it's been hectic. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you for making the time. I'm going to drop in the chat some questions that students, if you're not sure, once you get into breakout, you're not exactly sure what kinds of questions you want to ask. You just know you want to talk to this person. These are some suggestions of questions, so you can either copy and paste that. I can never remember if that goes with you to the breakout. I don't. It does. Okay, Lily's nodding her head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open all the rooms, one room for each person. And then you all can manually put yourself into a room. This will be the only person you talk with. For guests, if it looks like you don't have a lot of people, if you want to just join another guest and like have two of you in a room, because there aren't a ton of participants, we'll see how that goes, but I'll hop around and help get you all situated. So I'm going to open the rooms, and for all the students, y'all can pick who you'd like to talk with for the next 15 or so minutes, and then I'll bring you all back to wrap it up. Okay. And for the guests, if you can join the room with your name on it, that would be the best way to go. So you can open can you all see that? And if you need help with that, let me know.
Okay, yeah, I see it.
Okay. Maria, I can help you move to your room. Marissa, I can move you to your room. And let's see. And then for everybody else, go ahead and join whatever room you would like. Sorry, everybody. I'm guessing because everybody just
Oh.
got thrown back that you all were in mid-sentence. So sorry about that. We do need to keep on time. And I did want to have us wrap up with one last question for the panelists. And what I'll do also in the meantime for students who are participating, if you don't mind filling out this super short survey, just to give us a little bit of feedback on today. So one last question, maybe minute and a half for each of you. We've got our group of students here at Foothill. They're all considering STEM disciplines, not necessarily all engineering, but what's one piece of advice you'd want to leave with them? Maybe either advice you did get when you were in college or advice you didn't get that you learned later that you want to make sure people can walk away with. So one piece of advice that you wish you knew or you did know back when you were at this college age. Anybody want to start?
I'll go. I have two. Sorry, Sophia. The first is you don't have to have it all figured out now. Like you just get a feel for what you want to do next, and then take that next step. And then when you're in that next step, do the best you can at a certain point. When it's time for you to move on to the next thing or move up or wherever it is, it'll come to you naturally. I meet so many young, even kids in high school, they're just like, I don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life. Oh my God, my life is over. Oh my God, I'm freaking out. And it's just like, you don't need to know, all you need to know is what's the next step. And if you don't know that, then you just do the best you can at what you're doing right now. And when you're ready for the next step, you'll know. Like we're not meant to plan out our entire lives. And sometimes when we plan out our entire lives, we end up going all the way down a route that doesn't even make sense for us because we think that we have to follow that plan because that was our plan, And so like just all that anxiety about what your whole future is, not knowing what your whole future is going to look like, or not knowing even between two majors that you're considering right now, or not knowing if you want to go one direction or next, you're not supposed to know. Just focus on the present and then think about the very next step and let it come to you. It will come to you when it's time. And I'll leave it at that because that was a little bit long. The other one is don't let fear stop you. Like the imposter syndrome, it plagues all of us. So I think it was Melody that talked about the Tesla internship. That story resonated so much, and I was getting some questions too about what do I need to prepare? I'm not ready. It's like, you are ready. Like everybody starts somewhere. So don't let that fear, just all of those thoughts exist, but they exist for all of us. So just remove them and go forward with confidence, and what's meant for you will come. And, as long as you pursue it and put yourself out there. Okay.
That's great. Yeah. Thanks, Marissa. Who wants to go next?
I can go. Just really building off of what Marissa was saying. Like nobody has it figured out. I know it might seem like it, but everyone's like trying to figure it out. So don't feel like you're the only one and you're going through it alone. Like, yeah. And then also remember that like you learn a lot from failure. And I've like come to understand that like good things come out of failure. And they're like, I'm a firm believer of like everything happens for a reason. And I can sit down and go through all the times I've had failures and like what's come out of it. And it's always been good. So my other thing would be ask a lot of questions and like, don't be afraid to talk to people because of their titles, yeah, you learn a lot. And I also think that you should listen more than you speak, but
those are all great. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's it.
Thanks.
I guess I can go next. So a couple things. Number one, learn to be a people person, right? No good engineer ever works in a silo. And if you want to work on anything meaningful, you're going to be working with other people, right? Because there's no way that you're going to be able to learn the gamut of every single little technical detail of everything, right? You're going to be good at what you're good at, and then there's going to be people that are going to be good at other things. So you got to learn to be able to work with them.
Pra cá. Pra cá. Vai.
So learning to be a good people person, that's real important. And then number 2 would be, don't be afraid of the things that are outside of STEM. You know, like, don't be afraid of learning economics, finances, and all those other things, right? Because there's one thing that I learned in later in my career is that don't work for a company that won't offer you equity, right? Because you're not just working for the benefit of the company. You're working for the benefit of yourself, and you should be working as an investment on yourself. And if that's a skill set or whatever, but for me, ultimately, like, if there is no equity investment, like, for the work that I'm doing, then I'm working to build somebody else's dream and not mine, right? So don't be afraid to, you know, ask for that when you have a marketable skill. You know, equity is super important, because, you know, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, you know, you're working for just a salary is, you're not going to get very far with that, right? So you got to work as an investment on yourself. And so you got to learn stocks, you got to learn taxes, you got to learn all that stuff that I know, you know, us engineers, we want to focus on the technical stuff, right? We want to focus on the cool things. We want to build cool things and everything like that. But you also got to focus on yourself too. And your personal finances are really, really important. So don't ignore that. So get your ducks in a line early on. Trust me, it'll do you good.
Thanks, Viet. Maria or Lakevious?
I'll go. So I guess the first thing that I want to mention, or that I want to share, I'll leave you all with, is learn to keep the information and knowledge for a lifetime and not just for college. Like, not just for the test or the homework or the graduation, but so you can still have it, because you will need it as a professional or, you know, practicing engineer. So know your stuff, know yourself, kind of like how you learn best and how you retain the information and how you retrieve it effectively when you need it. The second thing is, like, ask questions. So I haven't always been super curious. Like, I would take things as they come. Like, I wouldn't necessarily ask like the what, when, how, why, to really dig deep and really understand the core of things. So definitely make sure you do that early on, because it will also help you to build that knowledge and to retain it. And seek help when you need it. Don't stay alone. I know, like, if you're super smart or like super confident, you can tend to like want to be in your bubble, like feel like you don't need anybody, but that's not true. Whether that's for your success while you're still at Foothill, or when you move out and start looking for jobs or like other opportunities, you still want to have those study buddies, friends, or different allies, and trust wisely. And then the last thing is be yourself. I wish someone had reminded me that more often when I was in school, like whether Foothill or even like college. You are who you are, and you got to be proud of that. So take the time to care about yourself, love yourself, be yourself. And especially as a minority, it's pretty hard for you to forget who you are and start acting like people would expect you to, or like people say that you should be acting. So make sure that you don't try to be someone that you're not, and don't feel pressure if you're not doing what people tell you to do or want you to do. And remember that you're never going to influence this world by trying to be like it. So that's all I have.
Great. These are all awesome. I'm just thinking I'm going to make a video with the clips of all of these pieces of advice, because I think they're all awesome. Lakevious, we'll wrap up with you.
I said it went first. That's a lot of great advice. No, I definitely agree with everyone. And I'm just going to say stuff outside of that, but definitely take advantage of what they said. I think the biggest thing for me, and I'm going to have to do multiple too, sorry. One, definitely network. So you mentioned LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably how I've gotten all of my jobs, pretty much. The people I've met within those companies from LinkedIn. And don't be specific to just social media. In person, have sit down conversations, talk to people outside of the internet, phone conversations, like meet people in person, talk to them. that still exists too. I know we forget that sometimes. Also, don't worry, like I said before, don't worry about knowing everything. There's people that's been in companies for 10 and 20 years, still don't know everything, especially in tech. Tech changes every day, literally every day. So you will never know everything. You will never, be in perspective to even feel like you know everything. So that's what makes the role or it makes the space of engineering welcoming for people like me. I enjoy learning every day. So that was something that I enjoyed. And honestly, just find something to do what you love. Like, don't worry about working for specific companies, making a specific salary. Like, when you love what you do, you enjoy what you do, and you just have the ambition every day to keep going, like, regardless of what the scenario is, you'll get there. Like, you'll get to where you want to be. Like, the money will always come. Like, I always say, like, people will work for salaries. Like, I know it was mentioned earlier, but that stuff will come, like the money, the benefits, things like that. When you get to a point where you get something you love, even if it's not working for a company, it may be something you create on your own, whatever that may look like. Just do what you enjoy, and it all makes sense after. So that's my advice, as well as the others that were mentioned before me. So thank you.
Yeah. Can we just give a hand either in the chat box, reactions for our 5 guests today? Thank you all so much for taking your time on a Friday morning / lunchtime, getting away from fires at work and things like that. Really, really appreciate all of your time just to share your thoughts. We've recorded it too, so we're going to post it to our YouTube channel, and I think hopefully more students will be able to watch it there. I think all the valuable advice you've shared, just like the career paths that you've all taken. So thank you again so much. For all the students, just
Sophia,
remember,
can I just say something super quick?
Yeah.
Just a reminder to all the Foothill students, I am also a Foothill employee, and I know a bunch of you moved to my breakout room, but then left, and like, I'm always happy to talk to you or answer any questions. So just shoot me an email. I think I put it in the chat, and I can be available, like, here on out. You can also find me on LinkedIn.
Definitely. And I would encourage all the students, you've got their names, go find them on LinkedIn and connect with them and add a note that says, hey, I saw you on this panel. Really loved what you said. Can we get a Zoom chat sometime? So that's the beginning stages, as you start to make your network that way. Thank you all so much. Thanks for joining. And that's it for today. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, you too. Bye.
Bye.